pollutants lag from that pollutant emission at a particular location, and the receiving, where the pollutants are received, means if you have to do the personal sampling, like what are the effects of those pollutants released at some industrial location on the students, on the people who are here in this institution. It means this is termed as receptor modeling, means the modeling is done at his location, particular location. Okay, the sampler will be installed at the top of the building, and you will be able to categorize the pollutants and identify their concentration. Means, is there any loss of pollutants? It means that sudden impact of those pollutants at that particular location is not studied, and the particulate matter impact on humans on the people who are in this institution is studied. Is it clear, or shall I explain it more? Is it okay? Whereas in the dispersion modeling, it means the place at stack sampling. It means the pollutants emitted from those industrial stacks, those chimneys, and there only the monitoring is done. It means rather than studying the impact of those meteorological parameters, those traveling path, traveling distance, the stack sampling is done at that location only. Means a sudden rise in the pollutant concentration can be observed. Whereas in receptor modeling, what we do, we study about the pollutants in much detail at the location or at the receptor site. This is known as receptor modeling. Okay, is it clear now? Now, in case of hybrid models, what happens? It is a combination of both the dispersion as well as the receptor modeling, and a huge amount of data is required with further more complications. This kind of study can also be done if we want to do better predictions of concentration at the source and as at the dispersion sites also. Okay. Now, in case of receptor models, the models are categorized from multivariate models to chemical mass balance method. Okay, CMB. That is, a very little information is required in case of these multivariate models, whereas a huge profile of the particulate pollutants is required in case of this CMB, chemical mass balance method. It means what are the pollutants, what is the quantity, no uncertainty kind of things are there. Means each and every parameter is needed to be calculated in much detail. Okay, so in this study, I'll discuss about PMF. What are the factors associated with it, and whether the results are acceptable or not, or what are the impacts of certain uncertainty things over the PMF, that is positive matrix factorization model. Now, from this direction, the wind flow can be seen in this figure. And this is the categorization of these factors, that source identification I was talking about. Means from what are the sources. So how these are classified? These are classified after the chemical analysis, like the presence of ammonium, potassium, or silica, aluminium, iron, calcium. If this is the combined structure I am obtaining after the PMF, positive matrix analysis, then it will be considered as a factor of crustal origin, means crustal elements. Okay, the factor responsible or the air pollution responsible in that particular area, if these are the chemical metals I am getting during my study. Okay, if in case of vehicular emittents, the pollutant concentration is higher for copper, lead, zinc, barium, all these kinds of metallic elements. Okay, that will be considered as a factor. It means that this categorization given by the CPCB, it is helpful for separation of those sources. Okay. Now, comparison between CMB and positive matrix factorization and principal component analysis. This PCA and PMF. These require similar kind of things. Means large data set, continuous monitoring periods. Okay, daily monitoring or weekly monitoring is required in such cases during a whole year. Means large data sets, large data is required for categorization of sources. Whereas if you are going to take a reading for a single day, okay, it is not possible that you will be able to categorize the sources. Also, in this case, what we have to do, only if you are saying that you are carrying out the sampling at NIT Raipur. Okay, and you are not taking, and you are representing the pollutants or the sources from a city level, means you are not doing the correct thing. What you have to do, you have to install the sampler at particular locations in a city at several distance, means this distance and this study, the places. Okay, you have to consider all the sources like institutional sources and residential sources you have to undertake under your study. Okay, and many other similar things like vehicular. If you have to take the vehicular pollution, then you have to install one sampler at Ghadi Chowk, one sampler at Takiband area. Okay, then you will be able to represent the pollutant concentration or sources in a city level. Okay, no, but not at a single sampling location. It means that large data sets are required. Also, as per the CPCB standard, the Central Pollution Control Board, okay, Ministry of Affairs, this preferable sample should be 104, means greater than 100 if you are doing the study for a single year. Okay, more than 100 samples you should be having, then only further study, further elemental and morphological analysis will be possible. Okay. This thing, how many factors to retain during the analysis, this should be known by you. This you will be able while doing the analysis, that is PMF. PMF software is freely available, not only about air pollution study, but you will be, if you are having certain data sets, you can categorize that data sets also into several factors, if you know what are the impacting factors. Then lab and field work required, that chemical, whatever needed, that is HNO3 and HCl, hydrochloric acid and nitric acid chemicals, these reagents required, and the instrumentation, that is PM 2.5 and PM 10 sampler, you should have. Then site selection and monitoring, like I just explained, that site selection, on what basis you are going to select the preferable site, where you should first identify at what location, at what height you will be installing the sampler. It is not possible that at ground level you are installing the sampler, because what happens, so many destructions will be there which will impact the flow of those pollutants inside the sampler. So you have to choose a particular height, particular location, where approximately it is known as it should be 200 meters away from those. If we consider vehicular pollutant sources, it should be 200 meters far away from that direct or concentrated pollution sources. Okay, it should not hamper the area around that sampler, should not hamper the monitoring or the sampling procedure. Okay, it should be free from obstructions. This thing you have to decide, and what pollutants you have to monitor, this needed to be decided, and morphological characterization of aerosols. Whether this is optional, whether if you are to you need to further study that exact sources from what these particulates are emitted, then morphological characterization is also done. This is just one example I am showing you here. This is the SPM, that is suspended particulate matter, and these are the dates during a study from 2018 to 2019, and the impact of wind speed, which I just explained you. In this diagram, you can see highest pollutant concentration levels during which periods you can observe here, like during the months of November, January and February. During these periods, the pollution concentration is very much higher. The main reason behind this is, I am in this case I am taking meteorological parameter as wind speed. So the impact of wind speed, it means it is negatively correlated with this pollutant SPM. Okay, means higher wind speed will lead to more dispersion, due to which the pollutant concentration will fall down during, during this August or October period of time. Whereas when suddenly the temperature goes down during this winter months and wind speed lowers, the pollutant concentration suddenly rises. This is the impact of only one parameter. Similarly, we can study the impact of rainfall. We can study impact of temperature. Okay. All these things are studied in much detail to analyze the particular matter. Now, in case of this trace metal analysis, the correlation coefficients between these heavy metals means while categorizing the sources, we can see that iron and manganese, this is having a good correlation coefficient. It will lead to identification of a particular single source. This must be known. And here, this is the example from Raipur study only, Raipur city. So maximum pollutant concentration. Again, in case of iron, the season where the highest pollutant concentration is winter, and the maximum concentration of which metal we can say here occurs is iron. The sources of iron, you should be aware about what are the sources. What it could be, like this is, the city is known as an industrial, it is city. Means industries can be a source also, and another one such reason. Any other? You can tell me, or you can just guess. The factor which increases iron concentration in air. Vehicular pollutants is also considered as responsible for concentration of higher iron concentration. Okay. Now coming to PMF concentration, it is a multivariate factor analysis where factor contributions and factor profiles are studied. This uses both sample concentration, means the PM, for example, if I am taking the example of PM 2.5, the concentration of PM 2.5, the safe limit for PM 2.5 is 40 microgram per meter cube. Means if the concentration level rises than 40, it is dangerous, it is harmful, it is not allowed. Then certain activities should be stopped. So what those activities will be? What activities should be stopped? For that, we have to identify the activities. We have to identify the sources from which sources these pollutants are coming. And also the uncertainty associated with your data. It means that I have said that large data sets are required. If due to some reason, due to failure of your instrument, you are not able to take the readings for a certain period of time, or you know that some error has been there in the instrument, during that period, you know that the uncertainty may be there in your readings. So that period of data should not be included in the analysis portion. Okay. Now, data handling and data preparation, you should have a good amount of data. Then running the PMF model, you have to do interpretation of those results you can do for identification of sources, and then optional examination like the impact of other meteorological parameters you can study. Now what happens, this factor categorization, this you need to do on the basis of the results. In this case, the number of runs, if you are giving here 20 number of runs in this model, PMF model, so it, and if you are giving another time 100 number of runs, it means which site will give you a good or appropriate estimation of those factors. What amount of runs you should give? It is actually 100 number of runs you have to give, and some, these are the already input provided in that software only, PMF model. Now these are the results I'm going to show here. It is not visible clearly. These are the predicted concentration here, and these are the observed concentration. This graph, after running the PMF model, you will be getting this graph where you can see the lines. This line, figure A, for example, figure A shows the regression plots between observed and predicted concentration. If observed and predicted concentration meet, coincide, it means that whatever number of runs or whatever your data was, that was considerable. It is accurately giving you the source categorization. This is the ultimate figure you will be obtaining from after running the PMF model. These red marks give you the concentration, pollutant concentration. This is the categorization of various sources like vehicular pollutant sources. I've given it a name as vehicular pollutant, means concentration of these metal like zinc concentration was higher in this case, and hence this nomenclature we have to do after running the model. After checking these results, what elemental concentration is in a larger quantity, and then you will categorize it as accordingly. Okay. Now factor contribution, in this case, iron and steel industry is more than 30, this blue circle. This shows that in Raipur area, the concentration of iron and steel industry. Okay, this source is a dominant source in this city. Also, the green one and the biomass burning. Okay, the levoglucosan, which was the chemical tracer for this identification of this parameter, means all the parameters, all the sources are having a good impact over the air pollution levels. Means these are the major factors. After identification of these major factors, you have to take proper appropriate steps to remove or to decrease the pollutant level. This is a trial and error method, means only first time if you are going to run this model, you are not going to obtain accurate results. It may be a little bit confusing, like on what basis you are going to categorize those tracer elements. Okay, so हो सकता है कि आपको एक बार run किया आपने 20 number of runs देके, so you have to wait for certain period of time and give it a bit more time and run for 100 times. Okay, so probably it is a trial and it is known as a trial and error method. Until and unless you obtain a certain good amount of results, like S/N ratio, it should be greater than 2. So if you are getting S/N value more than 2, means your results are good. The identification of factors is good. These are some chemical traces, like for unpaved road dust, aluminium, calcium, iron, potassium, silica, all these concentrations, if these are all combined in a single factor, means your source is road dust. Okay. Now back trajectory analysis. Trajectory means this compute air parcel trajectories. From what locations? In this location, if I am considering this Raipur area, from what path, from which direction this air is coming in this certain location, we have to study. You can study under this back trajectory analysis using high split model. This high split model is freely available at National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This was given by this NOAA. Okay. You have to just run the model once and you will be able to identify the tracers. Okay. From which location the air is traveling. This is one such example of our city. These are the heights in meters. At what, this you can decide at what levels you want the plot. You have to calculate this. You want to know this traveling path of pollutants. At what height this thing you can decide. Then limitations of receptor models is they requires more number of stations, means it is a very hectic task. Then, but highly intensive data will result in better results. Okay. Quality control and quality assurance issues are there. Now coming to the last topic as emission inventory. This emission factor is needed to be calculated. I was discussing about PM 2.5 and PM 10, on the basis of which you will categorize the pollution sources. So on the basis of this emission factor also, you can categorize that particular area. Like weight of pollutant you should know, and the unit weight or volume of that particular period for that particular period of time. If you are knowing, then emission factor you will be able to calculate. These are some things like emissions, activity rate, emission factor you should know, through which this emission estimation you can, emission estimation means estimation of those pollutant concentration. Now, why this emission inventory is done? To identify again the types of pollutant, what are the types of emissions or amount of emissions, emission rates, pollutant concentration at a location. Coming to the conclusion of this presentation, for receptor models, you can say a longer period of sampling is needed, required, constant data updating or data correction. For example, during rainy season, if you were not able, it won't be possible to install the sampler outside during rainy season and take the readings. So what happens, that gap, that lag is there, occurs in your reading. Okay, so constant data updating should be required, or due to failure of instrument, if something occurs, then you have to again update your data. You have to skip those reading. Okay, these are the references from which this study presentation has been prepared. Thank you. If you have any queries regarding this air pollution or PMF model or receptor models, you can ask.
Like you mentioned that there is a difference between the concentration in the weather.
Yeah.
In summer, so the concentration of pollution will be less, and in winters it would be more. So, can we have any preventive measures in the winters to have less concentration per day?
Yeah, sure. Like for example, if you at your level, if you have to do something like to reduce, if you have calculated that vehicular emission is a contributing factor at this location, then what you can do, you can share your vehicles, or you can opt for public vehicles. You have to travel for a more certain distance. Okay.
Actually, when you were mentioning, just thought came to my mind of Delhi that
Yes.
they have implied their policy of odd even. So I thought that it might have got down to a extent, but at the same time,